You're watching Reality Check. With every day, with every arrest, FIR and charge sheet, the Delhi police are only reinforcing the impression that they are acting under political instructions, using the investigation into the Delhi riots to target critics of the present government. Actions that the police are taking on the basis of highly questionable evidence. The latest is the arrest late on Sunday night of the activist and former student leader Umar Khalid. Khalid has been charged with a stringent anti-terror UAPA law as well as sedition and over 20 other sections of the Indian Penal Code, including murder and attempt to murder. What are the grounds? The police appear to be taking their cue from BJP IT cell head Amit Malviya, who tweeted a selective clip of a speech made by Khalid in Amravati, Maharashtra in mid-February, where Khalid calls for protests against the C.A.A. NRC to be timed with the India visit of Donald Trump. Even in itself, this selective clip can hardly be seen to be a call to violence, leave alone terrorism. Let's listen.
हम वादा करते हैं 24 तारीख को जब डोनाल्ड ट्रंप हिंदुस्तान आएंगे तो हम ये बताएंगे कि हिंदुस्तान के प्रधानमंत्री और हिंदुस्तान की सरकार हिंदुस्तान को बांटने का काम कर रही है, महात्मा गांधी के उसूलों की धज्जियां उड़ा रही है और ये बताएंगे कि हिंदुस्तान की आवाम हिंदुस्तान के हुक्मरानों के खिलाफ लड़ रही है। अगर हिंदुस्तान के हुक्मरान देश को बांटना चाहते हैं तो हिंदुस्तान की आवाम देश को जोड़ने के लिए तैयार है। हम तमाम लोग सड़कों पर निकल कर आएंगे। आप लोग निकल कर आएंगे?
Of course, what Malviya and now Delhi police seem to have ignored are portions of the speech where Khalid explicitly makes it clear that the protests should be peaceful.
हम हिंसा का जवाब हिंसा से नहीं देंगे, हम नफरत का जवाब नफरत से नहीं देंगे। अगर वो नफरतें फैलाएंगे तो हम उसका जवाब प्यार से देंगे। अगर वो डंडा चलाएंगे तो हम तिरंगा उठा के लहराएंगे। अगर वो गोली चलाएंगे तो हम संविधान को हाथ में लेकर अपने हाथ को बुलंद करेंगे। अगर वो जेल में डालेंगे तो सारे जहां से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा। गाते गाते हम हंसते हंसते जेल चले जाएंगे, लेकिन इस देश को आपको बर्बाद करने नहीं देंगे।
Now, in other charge sheets filed by the police, they have named Umar Khalid as being accused of plotting protests ahead of the Trump visit with the activist Khalid Saifi and a former councillor of the Aam Aadmi Party, Tahir Hussain, at a meeting on 8th of January this year. Except, as the Quint, the website, pointed out, the supposed meeting took place several days before the announcement of Trump's visit was made public. Now, Khalid's arrest just comes days after the police drew flak for naming leading academics, political figures and activists in one of the riot's charge sheets. Those named included Yogendra Yadav, Jayati Ghosh, Apurva Nand, Rahul Roy, Sitaram Yechuri and the lawyer Mahmood Paracha. The police had to clarify that they had only named them, not booked them. But as the Indian Express points out in today's editorial, even the naming is deeply problematic. The Express writes, the unvarnished message is this: all those who protested against the Citizenship Amendment Act can be hounded and harassed by a police force with a political view. A police that is now trampling over the vital distinctions in a democracy and equating the protester with the rioter. One that is acting and being seen to act as a force that will not stop at weaponizing laws to criminalize the dissenter. Moreover, even the naming or the basis of the naming has been called into question. The police have relied on what are known as disclosure statements by two activists who had been arrested in the riots case, Devangana Kalita and Natasha Narwal. To begin with, several lawyers have pointed out that such statements are not legally admissible as evidence. The two women have said that they have refused to sign those statements. Further, many parts of the Kalita and Narwal statements, which the police say were truthfully recorded as narrated by the accused person, are similar, almost cut and paste, indicating they have been drafted by the police themselves. This is what both the statements say. In the month of December, after passing the C.A.A. Citizenship Amendment Act, Jayati Ghosh, Professor Apurva Nand, Rahul Roy had explained that we have had to protest against C.A.A. NRC, for which we can go to any extreme. Umar Khalid had also given some tips for doing protest against C.A.A. NRC. This is both statements identical. On the directions of these persons, Umar Khalid's United Against Hate Group and JCC Jamia Coordination Committee and members of our Pinjara Tod together started protest in different parts of Delhi. Identical statements, even spelling errors, which we circled on the screen in the case of Jayati Ghosh and Apurva Nand's names, are repeated in both statements. The net result is the police have now named or booked a wide spectrum of critics of the government in the riots case, while conspicuously ignoring BJP leaders who gave hateful speeches. And that's what you can see on your screen before you. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see all the government's critics who've been named or arrested, from Yogendra Yadav, Harsh Mandar, Chandrasekhar Azad, Apurvanand Jayati Ghosh and so on, and then a whole list of student activists as well as others who have been arrested. On the other side, you have those like Kapil Mishra, Anurag Thakur, Parvesh Verma, the so-called Goli Maro gang of the BJP, who remain at large. All right, joining us tonight on Reality Check, we have with us Yogendra Yadav, National President, Swaraj India, Neeraj Kumar, former Commissioner, Delhi Police, Geeta Bhatt, political analyst, supports the RSS, BJP, and Shadan Farasat, advocate, Supreme Court. Yogendra Yadav, now my question to you is, we understand what the game is here, that the Delhi police is attempting with all this, but at the same time, it is deeply concerning and perhaps even worrying, even for those like yourself, you've now been in public life for many years, to find that you're named in a charge sheet, perhaps as a precursor to stronger action.
Precursor is the real word here, Srinivasan, because as the police has said, and correctly so, that as of now it amounts to nothing. That's actually correct, because this is only part of a disclosure statement. And as anyone who has ever done crime reporting would know, these disclosure statements are actually fabricated by police, because as you have mentioned, that Devangana and Natasha have refused to even sign that statement. So this has no legal sanctity, but they are better lawyers than me to testify to these things. The larger question that comes up is that of criminalization of a protest movement. So there are some people like me who continue to believe that CAA is against the very foundations of this country, is against the Constitution. We oppose it, we go all over the country, invite people. And what was the slogan I would use? Tune into any speech, I would say, एक हाथ में तिरंगा, दूसरे में संविधान, मन में अहिंसा, जनगण मन का गान. I used to say this should be our weapons in this movement. Now, if this movement is criminalized, if you say you were part of this, therefore you must be presumed to be part of violence, what does it do to our democracy?
Right.
That's a larger question we need to ask. And that is what should worry every citizen of this country. What happens to people who are named is only of concern to them, to a few more protesters. But these larger questions are things that every citizen will have to think about.
Right.
Because if we allow that, then maybe no one should stand up and speak against this government.
Okay. Geeta Bhatt, I just want to read out to you, we'll put that graphic on the screen, what the courts have been saying about all this so-called evidence that the Delhi police has produced. And the courts have been saying this as part of a series of judgments in different cases involving these activists, granting them bail. Delhi police has failed to produce any material that she, in the case of Devangana Kalita, in her speech, instigated women of a particular community. No direct evidence attributable to the accused has been found. Facts of the case reveal that the accused were merely protesting against the NRC-CAA and did not indulge in any violence. The investigation seems to be targeted only towards one end. Police have failed to point out the probe into the involvement of the rival faction. These are all courts, by the way, nobody else, Geeta ji, that's saying this. Now, given the fact that the Delhi police reports directly to the Home Minister of this country, Amit Shah, isn't this now just becoming embarrassing?
Well, Vasuji, first of all, this is already sub judice, whatever we are discussing today, and also there are FIRs which have been filed earlier. Some of them are being filed, and a process which is still being investigated. So at this time, being conclusive about anything is something which I think none of us should do. However, the point here is that since you started and you said that Umar Khalid has been arrested while he's been given, as I understand, the custody of a few days to the police by the court. Yes. So that means there must have been some proof which the court has seen logic that yes, because of this, the custody should be given to Delhi police of Umar Khalid. I hope you agree to that point. Now let us also remember...
Since you've asked me whether I agree, this is not a question of agreeing or disagreeing, but I think as many of the people, panelists, analysts, we have lawyers, we have a former Delhi Police Commissioner will tell you it's highly unusual for the courts to deny custody at the initial stage because they're not really scrutinizing the evidence in detail. When that evidence is scrutinized, as it does come up in the case of bail applications, this is what the police are saying again and again.
Okay,
that there
so
is simply no evidence and that the police are conducting a one-sided probe.
You see, can I please complete? No, I am not a lawyer, but I do understand, and as Yogendra ji was also citing, that this was a disclosure statement was made by one of the accused, and there were few names which were taken by some particular person, and that was which was reported over there. Now, if a particular media house or a newspaper tries to make a news out of it, then that does not mean that they are being accused of something. But however, let me just give me just 10 seconds.
We are talking now. We're not talking now anymore of the disclosure statements. We're just talking about Umar. You mentioned because you brought up Umar Khalid. Since you mentioned Umar Khalid, I'm saying in the case of Umar Khalid, he's actually been arrested, and the point is we don't know what is the evidence. The evidence appears to be some provocative speech. We just heard that speech. He's saying,
Vasuji,
we will go by the constitution. We will not provoke violence on any grounds.
We played it right now. I also heard what he said.
Right.
We also heard him in JNU how he had raised slogans for freeing Kashmir, for freeing Bastar in support
No, hold
of
on,
a terrorist fund.
Geeta ji, we are not on JNU right now. We are not on JNU. Now you got to JNU. He's not been arrested last night for JNU.
Umar Khalid also identifies with all those things. It is just to brush our memory, that's all.
Well, that's not germane at all for the current scenario. But anyway, can I just, if I can bring in,
20 seconds.
Okay, I'll come back to you, Geeta ji, because I have to give everybody equal time. I am going across to Neeraj Kumar, but before I go to Neeraj Kumar, I did speak to Julio Ribeiro earlier, and Julio Ribeiro, of course, as we know, a very respected former senior police officer, and he actually wrote a letter to the Delhi Police Commissioner expressing his concern over these arrests. And I began by asking him what exactly provoked him to write that letter.
You know, we have been looking at this action for quite some time, ever since the Delhi riots took place, even earlier. And we felt that perhaps the police is not taking action against those who have been really disturbing the peace of the city and who have made so many threats. Even on television we have heard him, and them rather, there are more than one of them. And we found that they arrest young people who are protesting and not the persons who have instigated the riots, I would say. That is why we felt that there was injustice, and any form of injustice really makes me sad.
Okay.
And all my life I've spent ensuring that there are no injustices.
Right. But I want to ask you that what do you think is provoking the police or driving them to act like this?
You know, this is an open secret that persons in charge, I mean the political party in power, often tries to influence the actions of the police. And that is what we say should depoliticize the leadership, at least, of the police.
Right.
Because the rank and file follow what the leader says. I have not seen any instance where the rank and file has disregarded the boss's orders. So,
I see.
if we ensure that the people at the top, they belong to the Indian Police Service, they are supposed to be managers and leaders, and they should ensure that the law is enforced impartially, based on the truth, on the facts. And that is what we expected, what we were taught in our training program, and then later on even during service from our seniors. And we have been following that, and it has worked very well. There have been attempts, of course, to tell us that this is not right and not wrong, and this is wrong. But whenever we have been able to explain the facts to the political bosses, they have always been willing to listen to us because there is a voice of reason and they also have a conscience, I presume.
Right.
Now, if there are officers who are willing to give up their conscience, I mean, that is unfortunate.
Right.
But there has been an attempt, and our officers also are at fault, I must agree, that they are very quick to give up their independence and their
Yes.
way of thinking or taking a decision.
Right.
They should take it on facts.
Take it on facts. Thank you very much indeed, Julio Ribeiro, for joining us. Neeraj Kumar, what do you make of Julio Ribeiro's suggestion that it's fairly clear what is going on here, that the police are simply acting under pressure of their political masters?
So I hold Mr. Ribeiro in the highest esteem, and not only I, the police force of the country holds him in the highest esteem. But what I would like to assure Mr. Ribeiro, sir, is that we do not have the full picture. We are going only by the media reports. Since I have headed the force, Delhi Police earlier, I have the benefit of occasional calls to the officers to know what the progress in investigation is and what are the contours of the conspiracy that is being reported in the media.
Right.
And I can only assure Mr. Ribeiro and also your viewers that there is proof, unimpeachable proof, technical evidence of the involvement of a certain group of people with the conspiracy that was being hashed over a period of time, which has eventually led to the ugly riots in the northeast Delhi.
I see. You say
Now,
that...
to presume that the Delhi police is taking a partisan action at the behest of the political masters, because that is the general trend all over the country, I think is not being fair to the investigators.
Okay.
I want to assure him once again that the investigations are fair, they are non-partisan, and contrary to all the narratives and all the perceptions that have been sought to be generated in the media, in certain sections of the media. I am convinced that the investigation is fair and non-partisan.
Okay, that's quite emphatic of you, even though, as I pointed out in my introduction, it's not necessarily the media, it's the courts themselves that are saying that the investigation seems to be in a fairly one-sided manner. This is, you know, these are court rulings. But Shadan Farasat, respond to that there is, you know, more evidence. We have not seen all of it, and it's pretty much clearly pointing to this conspiracy.
See, I think we can straight away, Mr. Neeraj Kumar's point can be belied by the simple fact that in these proceedings, a special commissioner of Delhi Police was found to have given instructions that members of a certain community should not be made accused because that will send the wrong sentiment down the line. And that matter came all the way to the High Court, and the High Court reprimanded this. So, I mean, what are we talking? It's all out there in the open how the investigation is happening. That you have a political project, you want to target individuals, you don't want to target the actual perpetrators on the ground.
Right.
And I have no doubt that in the period of 6 months to 9 months, the entire case which they are trying to build up, a lot of people have already come out, cases will be quashed, bails of course will be granted. And that process will of course take some time. But in 9 months' time, we will have all these false accusations. Nobody will really, none of this will stand because this has nothing to stand on. Absolutely nothing.
Right.
And
you know,
the question then will be that who are the real culprits? If 1 year down the line from February 2020, the police were to be asked to reinvestigate all of this, which is the most likely scenario, then are we in a 1984 kind of situation when we have lost the best evidence nearest to the incident? And I think that's my biggest worry.
Okay, I actually have a clip, because the point is, when you say who are the real culprits, or at least if you look at it, if you're going on the basis of speeches and insightful speeches, I think the point, Geeta ji, is that look, we understand how the police functions in this country. There are political pressures, but at least there's an attempt to present a kind of even-handed balance. In this case, it has become so glaring because you've got people who made openly insightful statements like Kapil Mishra and Anurag Thakur, against whom not even a shred of police action has begun. Let's just play that just to remind our viewers the contrast between what they were saying and between what somebody like Umar Khalid was saying. Let's just listen and I'll come to Geeta ji.
देश के गद्दारों को पीछे तक आवाज आनी चाहिए, गिरिराज जी को सुनाई दे। देश के गद्दारों को
ट्रंप के जाने तक आप जाफराबाद और चांदबाग खाली करवा लीजिए, ऐसी आपसे विनती कर रहे हैं। उसके बाद हमें रोड पे आना पड़ेगा।
हम हिंसा का जवाब हिंसा से नहीं देंगे, हम नफरत का जवाब नफरत से नहीं देंगे। अगर वो नफरतें फैलाएंगे तो हम उसका जवाब प्यार से देंगे। अगर वो डंडा चलाएंगे तो हम तिरंगा उठाकर लहराएंगे। अगर वो गोली चलाएंगे तो हम संविधान को हाथ में लेकर अपने हाथ को बुलंद करेंगे। अगर वो जेल में डालेंगे तो सारे जहां से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा, गाते गाते हम हंसते हंसते जेल चले जाएंगे, लेकिन इस देश को आपको बर्बाद करने नहीं देंगे।
गीता जी, if you like to respond to that, on one hand, गोली मारो सालों को, देश के गद्दारों को, हम रोड पे उतर जाएंगे, कोई पुलिस हमें नहीं रोक सकता, versus somebody who is talking of constitution and peace.
Well, Vasuji, earlier
and no
you were
action
talking
against
about,
the goli maro salon ko netas.
Well, Vasuji, earlier you only were talking about how selectively, audio tapes are picked up from a long conversation
and
are put forth to make a narrative out of it. Nevertheless, I want to just make.
So what is selective about? Okay, no. So then challenge me. What is selective about our playing of Anurag Thakur saying "Desh ke gaddaron ko goli maro salon ko," or Kapil Mishra saying that if you don't clear the road, we'll take the law into our own hands? What's selective about that?
Yes, please give me 20 seconds at least uninterrupted so that I can complete, just like you are letting others speak.
Please.
Allow me also to speak.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to say that also, please, just to remind you that it was the AAP councillor Tahir Hussain who in his disclosure statement had named Umar Khalid and one of his very close aides.
Ma'am, I'm asking about...
he had taken in telling about that how they had conspired regarding the Delhi riots.
Ma'am, this is misdirection. I'm asking about Kapil Mishra and Anurag Thakur.
That there has to be a corroborative.
But what about Kapil? But I'm asking on Kapil Mishra and Anurag Thakur.
So, there has to be, if the police has gone ahead to the court to ask for an arrest, we are presuming that there has to be a corroborative statement. They have not done it.
I'm asking for the third time.
They have not done it for many others.
For the third time. What about Kapil Mishra and Anurag Thakur?
Well, why isn't that, if they have done something wrong, then why is it that someone is not going to the court and challenging, like Mr. Farasat, who has already, discredited the Delhi police and the courts, that there is nothing in it while the investigation is still on. He has already, I am not passing any judgment. All I am saying is, that
the courts were moved.
Which is going on. Let us not be already prejudgmental about the case. But these are the facts. You can't deny that Umar Khalid's name was given by Tahir Hussain. In one of his
Yogendra Yadav, last word. What do you see as the end game of all this?
I would like to believe Mr. Neeraj Kumar. What he says is the way police should behave. Is the police behaving that way? There are some simple questions. As everyone knows, from 2018 onwards, Umar Khalid is under police protection. A police constable is with him all the time, and I presume also under electronic surveillance. Does the Delhi police want me to believe that while being under police protection right under their nose, he hatched this great conspiracy the Delhi police did not know about, could not find about, did not do anything to stop? Do you find it credible? Number two, on Tahir Hussain. The claim the Delhi police has made in a charge sheet is that they met on the 8th of January and hatched a conspiracy about Trump's visit. Now, it so happens that even the government of India did not know that Trump is coming on the 8th of January.
Yes.
Now, unless Umar Khalid has a special line to Mr. Trump, this must be a ridiculous theory.
Okay.
If Delhi police does things of this kind, how do you believe it? There is, of course, the question of Kapil Mishra and Anurag Thakur. Also, there is a question of those Delhi police people caught on camera, killing someone throwing stones, destroying CCTV camera.
Which still
For
has to be
6 months,
yeah.
a police force cannot identify its own men.
Right.
How do you trust that
Okay.
police force?
All right. We'll have to leave it there. We will come back to the story. We're completely out of time. Thank you all so much for joining us on Reality Check. That's all the time we have. Good night.